The scorching summer sun beat down mercilessly on Concordia, Kansas, as Elizabeth Blackburn's scream echoed through the ravine, bouncing off the jagged rocks like a terrible melody. One moment she had been galloping along the ridge, determined to deliver medicine to her ailing father, and the next she was tumbling through space, her loyal mare having spooked at a rattlesnake coiled in their path. Time seemed to stretch as she fell, the ground rushing up to meet her with unforgiving speed. Samuel Zachary had been tracking a stray calf when the sound reached him, cutting through the quiet afternoon like a knife. Without hesitation, he abandoned his search, urging his stallion toward the commotion. Upon reaching the edge of the ravine, he saw her, a woman with honey-colored hair sprawled on the rocky ground below, motionless amid the dust and scrub brush. Her horse was nowhere to be seen, having bolted after throwing its rider. "Hold on, miss," he called down, already dismounting and securing his horse to a nearby tree. "I'm coming down to get you." The descent was treacherous, loose rocks skittering beneath his boots as he navigated the steep slope. Samuel had lived in these parts for 5 years since moving west after the war, but he'd never had to attempt such a rescue. His heart hammered in his chest, not from exertion but from fear that he might find the woman beyond help when he reached her. It was 1878, and death was no stranger to the Kansas frontier. Samuel had seen his share of tragedy: cholera outbreaks, farming accidents, the occasional gunfight, but something about this woman's plight struck him differently. Perhaps it was the determined set of her jaw even in unconsciousness, or the quality of her riding clothes that spoke of someone unaccustomed to such misfortune. As he reached her side, Samuel knelt carefully, noting with relief the gentle rise and fall of her chest. She was alive, though a nasty gash across her forehead was bleeding freely and her left arm lay at an unnatural angle. "Miss, can you hear me?" he asked, gently touching her shoulder. Elizabeth's eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes the color of summer sage. For a moment, confusion clouded her features before pain registered, causing her to gasp sharply. "Don't try to move," Samuel cautioned. "You've taken quite a fall. I'm going to help you." "My horse," she whispered, voice strained. "Did you see what happened to Penny?" "Your mare ran off, I'm afraid, but let's worry about getting you to safety first." Elizabeth attempted to nod but winced instead. "My father needs medicine, in my saddlebag. We'll find your horse after we tend to you," Samuel promised. After a quick assessment, he determined that besides the broken arm and head wound, she had numerous cuts and bruises but nothing immediately life-threatening. Still, he needed to get her to a doctor quickly. "I'm going to carry you up. It might hurt some, but there's no other way out of here." Without waiting for her response, he carefully slipped one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her shoulders, lifting her with surprising gentleness for a man of his stature. Elizabeth bit her lip to keep from crying out as pain shot through her injured arm. "I've got you," he murmured, his voice steady and reassuring. "Just hold on to me with your good arm." The climb back up was arduous. Samuel paused frequently to adjust his hold and ensure his footing was secure. Each step jostled Elizabeth, drawing small whimpers from her despite her obvious attempts to remain stoic. By the time they reached the top, Samuel's shirt was soaked with sweat, and Elizabeth had grown alarmingly pale. "That's the worst of it," he told her, managing a smile as he gently set her down in the shade of a cottonwood tree. "Let me get my canteen." Elizabeth watched as he moved to his horse, noting the breadth of his shoulders and the careful way he handled her despite his strength. He couldn't have been more than 30, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes as blue as the Kansas sky. When he returned with water, she drank gratefully, the cool liquid reviving her somewhat. "Samuel Zachary," he introduced himself, tearing a strip from his bandana to blot the blood from her forehead. "Most folks call me Sam. I've got a small ranch about 3 miles east of here. Elizabeth Blackburn," she replied, wincing as the cloth touched her wound. "I live in town with my father, Judge Blackburn. I was bringing him medicine from Dr. Peterson. He's been ill with pneumonia." Sam nodded, recognition flickering in his eyes. The judge has a good reputation around these parts. Fair man. He glanced at her broken arm. "I need to splint this before we ride. It'll hurt, but it has to be done." Elizabeth steeled herself, knowing he was right. "Do what you must, Mr. Zachary." Using branches and more strips of cloth, Sam created a crude but effective splint, apologizing each time she gasped in pain. When he finished, he helped her take another drink of water. "My father," she said urgently. "The medicine. We'll find your horse," Sam promised. "But first, let's get you to the doctor." With careful movements, he helped Elizabeth to her feet and assisted her onto his horse before mounting behind her. The solid warmth of his chest against her back was oddly comforting as they set off at a gentle pace, mindful of her injuries. "Penny usually returns to the stable when she gets spooked," Elizabeth said after they had ridden in silence for several minutes. "The medicine might already be at home." "Then we'll head straight to town," Sam decided. "The doctor can see to you, and we can check on your father and the medicine at the same time." As they approached Concordia, Elizabeth became increasingly aware of the impropriety of their situation, arriving in town pressed against a man she had just met, disheveled and injured. But propriety seemed a small concern compared to her father's health and her own injuries. Dr. Peterson's office was on the edge of town, a modest white building with a small sign announcing his practice. As they approached, the door swung open, and the doctor himself appeared, alerted by the sound of hoofbeats. "Miss Blackburn," he exclaimed, hurrying down the steps as Sam halted the horse. "What in heaven's name happened to you?" "Her horse threw her into a ravine about 5 miles west," Sam explained, carefully dismounting before helping Elizabeth down. "Broken arm, head wound, and likely some bruised ribs. Doctor." Peterson nodded grimly, already assessing her injuries with a professional eye. "Bring her in, Mr. Zachary. Samuel Zachary, the rancher from Eagle Creek. I've heard good things about your operation." Sam nodded his thanks as he supported Elizabeth into the doctor's office, settling her gently on an examination table. "The medicine for my father," Elizabeth reminded the doctor as he began examining her head wound. "Already delivered, Miss Blackburn," Dr. Peterson assured her. "Your horse returned to town without you about an hour ago, saddlebags intact. Sheriff Miller took the medicine to your father and was about to organize a search party when your horse was discovered." Relief washed over Elizabeth, momentarily overshadowing her pain. "Thank goodness," she murmured. "I should go let the sheriff know you're found," Sam said, moving toward the door. "Save him the trouble of a search." "Wait," Elizabeth called, surprising herself with the urgency in her voice. "Please, would you check on my father? The housekeeper, Mrs. Winters, might need assistance." "Our home is the brick house at the end of Elm Street." Sam hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, Miss Blackburn. I'll go right away and come back to see how you're faring." As he left, Dr. Peterson gave Elizabeth a curious look. "That's the most words I've ever heard Samuel Zachary speak at once," he commented as he cleaned her wound. "Keeps to himself mostly, though he's well respected. Fortunate he found you when he did." Elizabeth closed her eyes as the doctor began stitching her wound. "Yes," she agreed softly. "Most fortunate indeed." Sam found the Blackburn residence easily. It was one of the finest homes in Concordia, a testament to the judge's standing in the community. He hesitated before knocking, suddenly aware of his dust-covered clothes and the blood Elizabeth's blood staining his shirt. Mrs. Winters, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, answered his knock with a suspicious frown that deepened when he explained who he was and why he'd come. "Miss Elizabeth is injured," she repeated, her initial wariness giving way to genuine concern. "Dr. Peterson is tending to her now," Sam assured her. "She asked me to check on her father and let you know she's been found." The housekeeper reluctantly allowed him into the foyer but no further. "Wait here," she instructed, disappearing up a staircase. Sam stood awkwardly, hat in hand, taking in the tasteful furnishings that spoke of Eastern refinement rather than frontier practicality. A portrait hung above the fireplace, a younger Elizabeth alongside a distinguished-looking man with the same sage-green eyes, and a woman with Elizabeth's honey-colored hair. The mother, he presumed, though Elizabeth hadn't mentioned her. Mrs. Winters returned promptly. "Judge Blackburn is resting comfortably. The medicine seems to be helping already. He's deeply grateful for your assistance to his daughter and asks that you convey his thanks to her as well." She paused, then added more kindly, "Would you care for some water before you go, Mr. Zachary?" Sam accepted gratefully, and as he drank, Mrs. Winters studied him with shrewd eyes. "How badly is she hurt?" she asked bluntly. "Broken arm, head wound that needed stitching, various cuts and bruises," Sam replied. "She's strong, though, barely made a sound as I carried her up from that ravine." Something like approval flickered across the housekeeper's features. "That sounds like our Elizabeth, stubborn as they come." She took the empty glass from him. "Will you be returning to the doctor's?" "I promised Miss Blackburn I would." Mrs. Winters nodded. "Then please tell her I'll prepare her room and that her father is asking for her when she's able to come home." Back at Dr. Peterson's office, Sam found Elizabeth sitting up, her arm properly set and bandaged, her head wound neatly stitched. Color had returned to her cheeks, and despite her ordeal, she managed a smile when he entered. "Your father is resting comfortably," Sam reported. "The medicine is working, according to your housekeeper. She's preparing your room and says your father is asking for you." "Thank you for checking," Elizabeth said sincerely. "Dr. Peterson wants me to stay here another hour before going home, just to be certain there are no complications from the head wound." "I can wait and take you home," Sam offered before he could consider the propriety of such an arrangement. Dr. Peterson, sorting medications at his cabinet, glanced over his shoulder. "That would be helpful, Mr. Zachary. I'd prefer she not walk, and I can't leave the office with Mrs. Jenkins due to deliver her baby any day now." And so Sam found himself settling into a chair in the doctor's waiting room, oddly content to wait for a woman he'd only just met. There was something about Elizabeth Blackburn that intrigued him, her courage in the face of pain, her concern for her father even in her own distress, the intelligence that shone in those remarkable eyes. An hour later, as he helped her into a borrowed buggy for the short ride to her home, Elizabeth broke the comfortable silence between them. "I haven't properly thanked you, Mr. Zachary. You saved my life today." Sam shook his head, focusing on the road ahead. "Anyone would have done the same." "Perhaps, but it was you who did it," she insisted. "I'm deeply grateful." He glanced at her then, struck by the sincerity in her expression. "You're welcome, Miss Blackburn. I'm just glad I was nearby." As they approached her home, Elizabeth straightened slightly, wincing at the movement. "Will you come in? I'm sure my father would like to thank you personally once he's feeling stronger." Sam hesitated. He wasn't accustomed to socializing, especially not in homes like the Blackburns. Since establishing his ranch after the war, he'd kept largely to himself, focusing on building his herd and making his land prosperous. "Another time, perhaps," he said finally. Your father needs rest, and you should get some yourself." Disappointment flickered across Elizabeth's face, but she nodded in understanding. "Of course. But I hope you'll accept an invitation to dinner once we're both recovered. It's the least we can do." As he helped her down from the buggy and to her door, Sam found himself agreeing, somewhat to his own surprise. Mrs. Winters received her with a mixture of relief and scolding, fussing over her injuries while simultaneously reprimanding her for riding out alone. "Thank you again, Mr. Zachary," Elizabeth said as Mrs. Winters prepared to usher her inside. "I won't forget what you did today." "Nor will I, Miss Blackburn," Sam replied, tipping his hat. "Get some rest now." As he drove away, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had happened that day, something beyond a simple rescue. He'd lived a solitary life since coming to Kansas, focusing on his ranch and keeping interactions with townsfolk to a minimum. Yet something about Elizabeth Blackburn had pierced that careful isolation, leaving him with an unfamiliar desire to see her again. Elizabeth's recovery progressed slowly but steadily over the following weeks. Her father's health improved more rapidly, allowing him to resume his duties as judge within a fortnight of receiving the medicine. Elizabeth found herself recounting the story of her rescue numerous times to visitors, each retelling strengthening her curiosity about the quiet rancher who had saved her. "He seems an honorable man," Judge Blackburn commented one evening as they sat in the parlor, Elizabeth reading aloud from a novel while her father smoked his pipe. "I've heard nothing but good reports of his character and business practices. Keeps to himself, though." "Yes, so Dr. Peterson mentioned," Elizabeth replied, marking her place in the book. "I still wish to invite him for dinner as a proper thank you. Do you think that would be appropriate?" The judge studied his daughter thoughtfully. At 24, Elizabeth had already declined several suitable marriage proposals from prominent men in the county. Following her mother's death 5 years earlier, she had devoted herself to managing their household and assisting her father, seemingly content with her life as it was. Yet there was something in her expression now that gave him pause, a spark of interest he hadn't seen before. "Entirely appropriate," he assured her. "Perhaps this Sunday. I should be well enough to serve as a proper host by then." And so an invitation was dispatched to Eagle Creek Ranch, carried by the judge's clerk who had business in that direction. Elizabeth found herself unaccountably nervous as Sunday approached, paying special attention to the menu, and even wearing her best day dress despite the informal nature of the occasion. Samuel Zachary arrived precisely on time, his appearance transformed from the dust-covered rescuer she remembered. He wore a clean, dark suit that, while not fashionable by Eastern standards, fit his broad shoulders well. His dark hair was neatly combed, and he had trimmed his beard. Most striking, however, were his eyes, as vividly blue as she recalled, but now revealing a hint of nervousness that somehow made her feel more at ease. "Welcome to our home, Mr. Zachary," Judge Blackburn greeted him warmly, shaking his hand. "We're delighted you could join us." "Thank you for the invitation, sir," Sam replied, his deep voice resonating in the entryway. He turned to Elizabeth, a small smile softening his features. "Miss Blackburn, you're looking well. How is the arm healing?" "Much better, thank you," she replied, returning his smile. "Dr. Peterson says the break was clean and should heal completely with time. Please, come into the dining room. Mrs. Winters has prepared a special meal." Conversation flowed more easily than Elizabeth had anticipated during dinner. Though initially reserved, Sam gradually opened up as Judge Blackburn asked thoughtful questions about his ranch and his experiences during the war. Elizabeth learned that he had fought for the Union, serving under General Sherman, and had come west afterward seeking a fresh start away from painful memories. My family's farm in Pennsylvania was too full of ghosts, he explained, his expression momentarily distant. Two of my brothers didn't return from the war. I needed something different, a place where I could build something of my own. And you chose Kansas, Elizabeth prompted when he fell silent. Sam nodded, his expression clearing. The land called to me. There's a honesty to it, demanding but fair. You get back what you put in, no more and no less. A philosophy that applies well beyond farming, Judge Blackburn observed. I've always believed that justice functions similarly. As the meal progressed to apple pie and coffee, Elizabeth found herself increasingly drawn to their guest. Behind his quiet demeanor lay a sharp mind and thoughtful perspective. When he occasionally smiled, truly smiled, it transformed his face, revealing a warmth that belied his reputation for solitude. "You raise cattle exclusively, Mr. Zachary?" she asked as Mrs. Winters cleared the dessert plates. "Primarily, yes, though I keep horses, 2-quarter horses mainly. I've been breeding them selectively for cattle work." He hesitated, then added, "I actually have a mare that might suit you better than your current mount. More steady-tempered, especially around rattlesnakes." Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting Penny is somehow at fault for our accident?" "Not at all," Sam assured her quickly. "Any horse might spook at a snake, but some are naturally less skittish. The mare I'm thinking of, Daisy, has encountered rattlers before without panicking. Perhaps you could bring this paragon of equine virtue by some time," Elizabeth suggested, a teasing note in her voice. "I should like to meet her." "I could bring her tomorrow if that's convenient," Sam offered, his eagerness betraying his interest in returning. Judge Blackburn exchanged a knowing glance with Mrs. Winters, who was refilling coffee cups with poorly concealed curiosity. "That would be fine, Mr. Zachary." Elizabeth usually rides in the afternoons when weather permits, though obviously not while her arm is healing. "Just to see the horse, Father," Elizabeth clarified. "I'm not planning to ride until Dr. Peterson gives his approval." As the evening concluded, Sam thanked them for their hospitality with genuine warmth. At the door, he paused, addressing Elizabeth directly. "I've enjoyed this evening very much, Miss Blackburn, more than I expected to, if I'm being honest." "As have I, Mr. Zachary," she replied softly. "Until tomorrow, then." "Until tomorrow," he confirmed, a smile touching his eyes before he donned his hat and departed into the night. Back inside, Judge Blackburn regarded his daughter thoughtfully. "An interesting man, your rescuer." "Yes," Elizabeth agreed, unable to suppress a small smile. "Quite interesting indeed." True to his word, Samuel arrived the following afternoon leading a beautiful chestnut mare with a white blaze down her face. Elizabeth met him in the small paddock behind their house, where they kept Penny and her father's gelding. "This is Daisy," Sam announced proudly as Elizabeth approached the fence. 4 years old, smart as they come and steady as a rock." The mare regarded Elizabeth with intelligent eyes, ears pricked forward with interest. Unlike many horses that shied away from strangers, Daisy stretched her neck over the fence, gently snuffling at Elizabeth's outstretched hand. "She's beautiful," Elizabeth acknowledged, stroking the mare's soft muzzle. "Did you raise her from a foal?" Sam nodded, a hint of pride in his voice. "Her dam was one of the first horses I bought when I established the ranch. Daisy's the 3rd generation I've bred." For the next hour, they discussed horses, with Sam demonstrating Daisy's training and temperament. Elizabeth was impressed not only by the mare's quality, but by Sam's gentle, yet confident handling. There was none of the harsh treatment she'd observed from some horsemen, only clear communication and mutual respect between man and animal. "Would you consider selling her?" Elizabeth asked finally, already half in love with the mare's gentle disposition. Sam hesitated. I hadn't actually thought about selling her. I brought her to show you what to look for in a steady mount. He paused, then added, but I suppose I could consider it for the right price. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. And what would the right price be, Mr. Zachary? A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Dinner at your home again next Sunday. The forthrightness of his request caught her by surprise, and Elizabeth felt a blush rising to her cheeks. Mr. Zachary, are you attempting to barter a fine horse for a mere meal? Not at all, he replied seriously. I'm suggesting an arrangement where I continue to care for Daisy until your arm is fully healed, bringing her here once a week so you can become acquainted. If, after your recovery, you still wish to purchase her, we can discuss a fair price. He paused, a hint of uncertainty crossing his features. And perhaps you might permit me to stay for dinner on those occasions. The proposal was unusual but not improper, especially given that her father would be present. And if Elizabeth were honest with herself, the prospect of seeing Samuel Zachary regularly over the coming weeks was not at all unwelcome. I believe that could be arranged, she agreed, trying to maintain a businesslike tone despite the warmth spreading through her chest. Provided my father approves, of course. Approves of what? Judge Blackburn's voice came from behind them as he approached the paddock, looking much healthier than he had in weeks. Sam explained his proposition, which the judge received with thinly veiled amusement. A novel approach to horse trading, Mr. Zachary. But I have no objections if Elizabeth is agreeable. And so began a new routine. Each Sunday afternoon, Samuel would arrive with Daisy in tow, allowing Elizabeth to spend time with the mare under his guidance. As her arm healed, she progressed from simply grooming and handling the horse to eventually leading her around the paddock. Throughout these sessions, Elizabeth discovered that Sam was a patient teacher with a wealth of knowledge about horses and ranch life. Their Sunday dinners became the highlight of Elizabeth's week. While initially somewhat formal, the atmosphere gradually relaxed as they grew more comfortable with each other. Sam began sharing more about his life and aspirations for his ranch, while Elizabeth told stories of her childhood in St. Louis before her father had accepted the judgeship in Kansas. Did you always want to be a rancher? She asked one Sunday in late August as they sat in the garden after dinner, enjoying the cooler evening air while Judge Blackburn dozed in his study. Sam considered the question, absently running his fingers along the arm of his chair. Not always, no. As a boy, I thought I might become a carpenter like my father. I had some skill with wood. He smiled slightly. I still enjoy working with it when I have time. Built most of the furniture in my home myself. Really? Elizabeth was genuinely impressed. I'd like to see your work sometime. The words hung between them, both aware of the impropriety of her visiting his ranch alone. Sam cleared his throat. Perhaps you could. When you come to try riding Daisy for the first time. Your father would be welcome too, of course. Dr. Peterson had indicated that Elizabeth could resume light riding in another 2 weeks, assuming her arm continued to heal well. The prospect of visiting Eagle Creek Ranch, of seeing where and how Sam lived, was unexpectedly thrilling. I'd like that very much, she said softly. Their eyes met and held for a long moment. Something shifted in the air between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing steadily over the past weeks. Sam leaned forward slightly, and for a breathless moment, Elizabeth thought he might take her hand. Instead, he seemed to recollect himself, sitting back with a small sigh. It's getting late, he observed, glancing at the setting sun. I should head back before dark. As he rose to leave, Elizabeth walked with him to where Daisy was tethered alongside his stallion. The evening air had cooled, bringing with it the sweet scent of late summer flowers from the garden. "Next Sunday, then," she confirmed as he prepared to mount. Sam paused, one foot in the stirrup, and turned to face her. In the golden light of sunset, his eyes were impossibly blue, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. "Elizabeth," he said, her given name sounding intimate on his lips, "I want you to know that these Sundays, they've meant a great deal to me." The simple honesty of his words touched something deep within her. Without overthinking, Elizabeth stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on his arm. "They've meant a great deal to me too, Sam," she replied, using his shortened name for the first time. For a moment, they stood in perfect stillness, the world narrowing to just the two of them. Then, with gentle deliberation, Sam bent and pressed a kiss to her cheek, brief but unmistakably tender. "Good night," he murmured, his voice husky. "Good night," she whispered in return, her cheek tingling where his lips had touched. As she watched him ride away, Elizabeth acknowledged the truth she had been gradually accepting over these past weeks. She was falling in love with Samuel Zachary. The day Elizabeth was to visit Eagle Creek Ranch dawned clear and mild, perfect weather for her first ride since the accident. Judge Blackburn, though initially planning to accompany them, was detained by an unexpected legal matter requiring his immediate attention. "You should still go," he told Elizabeth over breakfast. "Mrs. Winters can accompany you as chaperone. I trust Samuel implicitly, but propriety must be maintained." And so, mid-morning found Elizabeth and Mrs. Winters in the Blackburn buggy, following Sam's directions to his ranch. The housekeeper maintained a dignified silence for most of the journey, though Elizabeth occasionally caught her casting speculative glances in her direction. "He seems a good man, Mrs. Winters finally commented as they turned onto a well-maintained road marked by a wooden sign reading Eagle Creek Ranch. "Different from your other suitors." "He's not my suitor," Elizabeth protested automatically, though the words rang hollow even to her own ears. "Mrs. Winters merely raised an eyebrow, a knowing expression on her weathered face. "If you say so, Miss Elizabeth." Further conversation was forestalled as they crested a gentle hill, revealing the ranch spread before them. Elizabeth caught her breath at the sight. Nestled in a picturesque valley with a creek winding through it, the ranch was far more extensive than she had imagined. A substantial log home stood on a rise overlooking well-built barns and corrals. Fields of hay stretched to the east, while cattle grazed on rolling pastures to the west. Everything about the place spoke of careful planning and diligent work. Sam emerged from one of the barns as they approached, a smile breaking across his face at the sight of them. He helped Elizabeth down from the buggy with careful hands, his touch lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "Welcome to Eagle Creek," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm glad you could come." The next few hours were a revelation to Elizabeth. Sam showed them around the ranch with evident pride, from the sturdy barns to the innovative irrigation system he had designed for his hay fields. The home itself was a surprise, spacious and well-constructed, with large windows capturing light and views from every direction. As promised, much of the furniture had been crafted by Sam himself, each piece revealing skillful workmanship and an eye for beauty as well as function. "It's lovely," Elizabeth said sincerely as they concluded the tour in the main room, where a stone fireplace dominated one wall. "You've built something remarkable here, Sam." A hint of color touched his cheeks at her praise. "It's still a work in progress," he demurred. "But yes, I'm proud of what I've accomplished." Mrs. Winters, who had been examining everything with critical attention, nodded approvingly. "You've done well for yourself, Mr. Zachary. Not many bachelors keep such an orderly home." "My mother would accept nothing less," Sam explained with a small smile. Those habits stuck, even out here. After a simple but delicious meal prepared by Sam himself, they moved to the matter of Elizabeth's first ride. Daisy was saddled and waiting in a small corral, looking magnificent in the afternoon sunlight. "We'll take it slowly," Sam assured Elizabeth as he helped her mount. "Just around the corral at first, to make sure you're comfortable." Though her arm was officially healed, Elizabeth felt a moment of trepidation as she settled into the saddle, memories of her fall flashing unbidden through her mind. Sam seemed to sense her anxiety, placing a steadying hand on Daisy's neck. "She won't let you fall," he promised quietly. "And neither will I." With Sam leading Daisy at first, Elizabeth gradually regained her confidence. By the end of an hour, she was walking and trotting the mare independently around the corral, laughing with pure joy at the freedom of being on horseback again. "She's perfect," Elizabeth declared as Sam helped her dismount. "Absolutely perfect. So you'll take her?" he asked, his hands lingering at her waist. Elizabeth nodded, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, of Mrs. Winters watching from the porch with sharp eyes. "Yes, I'll take her. Though I still don't know what price you're asking." Sam's gaze grew serious. "Would you walk with me a moment? There's something I'd like to show you." After a glance toward Mrs. Winters, who gave a small nod of permission, Elizabeth followed Sam to a rise just beyond the corral. From this vantage point, the entire ranch was visible, bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. "When I first came here," Sam said quietly, "this land was nothing but potential, wild, untamed, but with a promise of what could be." He turned to face her directly. "I worked every day from dawn till dusk to build what you see now. Some people thought I was crazy to try it alone. Maybe I was, but I had a vision of what this place could become." Elizabeth listened, sensing there was more to his words than a simple history of the ranch. "For years that vision was enough," he continued. "The work, the challenge, the satisfaction of creating something from nothing. But lately—" He hesitated, then pressed on. "Lately, I've realized that success means little when experienced in solitude." Her heart quickened as he took her hands in his touch gentle yet sure. "Elizabeth, these past weeks have shown me what I've been missing. You've brought something into my life that I didn't even know I needed: laughter, conversation, a different perspective." He drew a deep breath. "I'm not asking for an answer today. I know this may seem sudden, but I wanted you to understand why this place matters to me, and why sharing it with someone with you would mean everything." Elizabeth stood speechless, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion in his voice and eyes. It wasn't a formal proposal, yet the implication was clear. Sam was offering not just his heart but his life, his home, his future. "Sam," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything yet," he assured her. "Just think about it. About what life might be like here. With me." Before she could respond, Mrs. Winters called from the corral, reminding them that they should start back to town before dusk. The moment broken, Sam squeezed Elizabeth's hands gently before releasing them. "We should get you home," he agreed, though reluctance was evident in his voice. The ride back to Concordia was quieter, both Elizabeth and Sam lost in their own thoughts while Mrs. Winters dozed in the back of the buggy. As they approached town, Elizabeth finally broke the silence. "About Daisy," she began. "I'd like to purchase her if your offer still stands." "It does," Sam confirmed. "Though I meant what I said about sharing all that I have." Elizabeth smiled softly. "One step at a time, Mr. Zachary. First, let's settle on a fair price for this exceptional mare." They agreed on a sum that was generous but not excessive, with Sam promising to deliver Daisy to the Blackburn stable the following weekend. As he helped Elizabeth down from the buggy at her home, he hesitated, clearly wanting to say more but conscious of Mrs. Winters's presence. Sunday dinner, Elizabeth suggested, saving him from his dilemma. My father will want to hear all about our day. Relief and pleasure washed over his features. I'll be here, he promised. That night, Elizabeth lay awake long into the small hours, replaying the day in her mind. The ranch had exceeded her expectations, revealing Sam's vision and dedication more clearly than words ever could, and his almost proposal. It wasn't that she didn't care for him, quite the opposite. In the weeks since her accident, Samuel Zachary had steadily claimed a place in her heart that no other man had approached. But marriage was a monumental decision, especially to a man whose lifestyle differed so dramatically from what she had known. Life on a ranch would be challenging, isolated, demanding in ways her town existence was not. Was she prepared for such a change? Could she truly be happy there, or would she eventually long for the society and conveniences of town life? Yet when she imagined a future without Sam returning to her previous existence of social calls and managing her father's household, she felt a hollowness that answered her questions more clearly than any logical deliberation could. By morning, Elizabeth had reached a decision, though she kept it to herself, wanting to speak with her father first. Judge Blackburn listened attentively as she recounted their visit to the ranch, including Sam's implicit proposal. "And what are your feelings on the matter?" he asked when she had finished. Elizabeth met his gaze steadily. "I believe I love him, Father. It's happened so gradually and yet so completely that I hardly know when it began, but the thought of a future without him." She shook her head. "I can't imagine it anymore." The judge studied his daughter, seeing in her the same quiet determination that had characterized her mother. "Life on a ranch is not easy, Elizabeth, especially for a woman accustomed to town comforts." "I know," she acknowledged. "But neither was frontier life easy for you and Mother when you first came west from St. Louis. She adapted and found happiness here, didn't she?" "She did," he agreed softly, memories of his late wife bringing a gentle smile to his face. "And I believe you have her strength." He reached across to pat her hand. "If Samuel formally asks for your hand, he has my blessing, provided, of course, that he can convince you." Elizabeth's eyes sparkled with unexpected tears. "Thank you, Father." Sunday arrived with agonizing slowness. Elizabeth found herself unusually fastidious about her appearance, choosing her most becoming dress, a deep green that complemented her eyes, and arranging her honey-colored hair with particular care. When Sam arrived promptly at noon, leading Daisy as promised, the sight of him sent her heart racing in a most undignified manner. "She's all yours now," Sam said as he handed Elizabeth the mare's reins in the paddock behind the house. "Though I'm happy to continue helping with her training if you wish." "I'd like that," Elizabeth replied, stroking Daisy's neck. "Perhaps you could show me some of those cattle working techniques you mentioned." Sam's eyes brightened at her interest. "Anytime you'd like. Though it's demanding work, not what most ladies consider enjoyable." "I'm not most ladies, Mr. Zachary," she reminded him with a raised eyebrow. "And I believe I might enjoy learning what life on a ranch truly entails." Understanding dawned in his expression, hope and uncertainty battling across his features. Before he could respond, however, Mrs. Winters appeared to announce that dinner was served, and the moment passed. Throughout the meal, Elizabeth caught her father watching them with knowing eyes, especially when conversation turned to the future of Eagle Creek Ranch. Sam spoke enthusiastically about his plans for expanding the herd and possibly adding sheep to diversify his operation. "I've purchased the adjacent parcel to the south," he explained. "Another 100 acres with good water access. It needs fencing, but once that's done, I can increase the herd by at least 30%. Ambitious plans, Judge Blackburn commented. Will you manage it all alone? Sam hesitated, his eyes flickering briefly to Elizabeth. I've been considering taking on a partner, he said carefully. The right partnership could make all the difference. The judge nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Indeed it could. The right partnership is invaluable in any endeavor. After dinner, Judge Blackburn claimed fatigue and retired to his study, leaving Elizabeth and Sam alone in the parlor with the door conspicuously ajar, a compromise between propriety and privacy. Your father seems better every time I see him, Sam observed, settling into an armchair across from Elizabeth. Yes, he's almost fully recovered now. Dr. Peterson says it's something of a miracle, given his age and the severity of the pneumonia. She smiled softly. I'm grateful for every day with him. Sam nodded in understanding. Family is precious. I regret that my parents never saw this place what I've built here. They would have been proud, I think. I'm sure they would, Elizabeth agreed. Then, gathering her courage, she continued, I've been thinking about what you said at the ranch, about sharing your life with someone. Sam's posture straightened, his full attention focused on her words. Have you? Yes. She met his gaze directly. I've lived a relatively sheltered life, Sam. Town life, with its comforts and social obligations. Life on a ranch would be an adjustment, certainly. His expression fell slightly at her words, but he nodded. It would. I understand if that's not what you want. But, she interrupted gently, I find that when I imagine my future now, it's not in town at all. It's at Eagle Creek, watching the sunrise over those beautiful hills, helping to build something meaningful alongside someone who sees me as a true partner, not merely a decorative addition to his household. Hope bloomed in Sam's eyes as he leaned forward. Elizabeth, if you were to formally ask me a certain question, she continued, her heart pounding, I believe my answer would be yes, though I would request a proper courtship period first to be entirely sure we suit. In a heartbeat, Sam crossed the space between them, kneeling before her chair and taking her hands in his. Elizabeth Blackburn, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes, would you do me the extraordinary honor of allowing me to court you with the intention of making you my wife? Joy bubbled through Elizabeth like champagne, effervescent and sweet. Yes, Samuel Zachary. I would like that very much. His smile was radiant as he raised her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss first to one, then the other. You've made me the happiest man in Kansas, he declared, and the sincerity in his voice left no room for doubt. From the study, where the door stood conveniently ajar, came the sound of Judge Blackburn clearing his throat. I believe congratulations are in order, he called, his tone amused. Sam helped Elizabeth to her feet, and together they went to share their news, both glowing with the promise of the future they would build together. The following months passed in a whirlwind of activity. True to her word, Elizabeth insisted on a proper courtship, though neither she nor Sam had any real doubts about their ultimate destination. With Judge Blackburn's blessing, she began spending more time at Eagle Creek Ranch, learning the rhythms and demands of ranch life under Sam's patient guidance. To her surprise, Elizabeth found genuine satisfaction in the work, from helping with the spring calving to learning how to manage the kitchen garden Sam had started, but somewhat neglected. She discovered an aptitude for bookkeeping as well, bringing order to his haphazard accounting system and suggesting efficiencies that impressed even her business-minded father. You seem to have found your calling, Judge Blackburn observed one evening after Elizabeth had spent the day helping Sam evaluate new breeding stock at a neighboring ranch. I've never seen you so animated. It's challenging, she admitted, and exhausting at times. but there's a realness to it that I find compelling. Everything we do has a purpose, a direct impact on the success of the ranch." She smiled, a hint of wonder in her expression. "And Sam values my input. He doesn't just humor me, he actually implements my suggestions when they make sense." The judge nodded, understanding perfectly. Elizabeth had always possessed a keen mind, but few men in their social circle had appreciated that aspect of her. Samuel Zachary, it seemed, was different. For his part, Sam found himself continually amazed by Elizabeth's adaptability and determination. She approached ranch work with the same intelligence and attention to detail that characterized everything she did, never complaining about the early hours or occasional discomforts. More than that, she brought a perspective he hadn't realized he was missing, noticing opportunities he had overlooked, suggesting improvements that seemed obvious once she pointed them out. By the time autumn painted the Kansas landscape in golds and russets, both knew without question that their future lay together. On a crisp October evening, with the first hints of winter in the air, Sam formally proposed during a ride along Eagle Creek, dropping to one knee beside the rushing water while Daisy and his stallion grazed nearby. "You already know I love you," he said, holding up a simple but elegant ring. "You know I want to spend my life with you, but I want to say the words properly. Elizabeth Blackburn, will you marry me? Will you build this life, this ranch, this family with me?" Tears of happiness blurred her vision as she nodded. "Yes, Sam. Nothing would make me happier." The wedding was set for early December, allowing time for Elizabeth's aunt and cousins to travel from St. Louis for the ceremony. As the date approached, Elizabeth divided her time between preparations in town and continuing her education in ranch management at Eagle Creek. Sam, meanwhile, threw himself into completing renovations to the ranch house, expanding the master bedroom and adding a proper study where Elizabeth could maintain the ranch records. "He's building you bookshelves now, Mrs." Winters reported with poorly concealed approval after delivering some of Elizabeth's belongings to the ranch. "Fine ones with glass doors to keep out the dust." Elizabeth smiled, touched by Sam's thoughtfulness. He understood her love of reading and was ensuring she would have a space for her books in their home. It was these small considerations, as much as his more dramatic declarations of love, that reassured her about the decision she had made. The wedding day dawned clear and cold, the kind of crisp winter morning that promises beauty rather than hardship. In the Blackburn home, Elizabeth prepared with her aunt and cousins, her usual composure somewhat shaken by the magnitude of the step she was about to take. "Are you certain, my dear?" Aunt Margaret asked as she helped arrange Elizabeth's veil. "Ranch life is so isolated, especially in winter. You could still have your pick of suitable men in town or even back in St. Louis." Elizabeth met her aunt's concerned gaze in the mirror. "I'm certain, Aunt Margaret, Sam is. He's unlike anyone I've ever known. Strong yet gentle, determined yet flexible. When I'm with him, I feel like my best self." She smiled, a private smile that spoke volumes. "And when I think of life without him, I can't breathe." The older woman's expression softened. "Then you found what your uncle and I have had for 35 years. I can wish nothing better for you, my dear." The ceremony itself was held in Concordia's small but well-appointed church, decorated for the occasion with evergreen boughs and white ribbons. As Elizabeth walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her eyes found Sam waiting at the altar, his expression a mixture of awe and adoration that brought a lump to her throat. He had never looked more handsome than he did in that moment, his broad shoulders filling out his new suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his blue eyes fixed on her as though she were the only person in the world. When Judge Blackburn placed her hand in Sam's, the warmth and strength of his grip steadied her trembling fingers. "You're beautiful," he whispered as they turned to face the minister together. The service was traditional but personal, with readings selected by both Elizabeth and Sam that reflected their values and hopes for their marriage. When the time came to exchange vows, Sam's voice rang clear and sure through the church, making promises that brought tears to Elizabeth's eyes and more than a few sniffles from the assembled guests. "I, Samuel James Zachary, take you, Elizabeth Ann Blackburn, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to cherish and respect you, to support and encourage you, to be faithful and devoted to you through all the seasons of our life together. I will be your partner in work and in rest, your comfort in sorrow, your joy in celebration. This is my solemn vow." Elizabeth's response was equally heartfelt, her voice steady despite the emotion welling within her. As Sam slipped the wedding band onto her finger to join her engagement ring, she felt a sense of rightness, of completion, that transcended the ceremony itself. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Sam's kiss was gentle yet possessive, a perfect blend of tenderness and passion that promised so much more, as they turned to face their friends and family as Mr. and Mrs. Zachary. For the first time, Elizabeth knew with absolute certainty that the path that had begun with a frightening fall into a ravine had led her exactly where she was meant to be. The reception was held at the Blackburn home, with tables set up in the parlor and dining room to accommodate the many well-wishers. Elizabeth and Sam moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and good wishes with genuine gratitude. Judge Blackburn's toast brought tears to many eyes as he spoke of his daughter's courage and his new son-in-law's integrity, concluding with a heartfelt blessing for their future together. As the celebration continued into the evening, Elizabeth found herself drawn into conversation with Martha Jenkins, the wife of a successful rancher whose property adjoined Eagle Creek to the east. "Samuel's made something fine at Eagle Creek," Mrs. Jenkins said approvingly. "But it'll be all the better with a woman's touch. A ranch needs a family to truly thrive." Elizabeth smiled, already thinking of the children she and Sam might have someday: strong, kind sons with his blue eyes, perhaps daughters with her love of books and his determination. "I hope we'll build that family together," she agreed. "You will," the older woman assured her with a knowing nod. "I've seen how that man looks at you, and how you look at him." She patted Elizabeth's hand. "You'll face challenges, as all marriages do, but you've chosen well. Samuel Zachary is a man of his word, and that's worth more than gold out here." As the evening drew to a close, Sam approached Elizabeth where she stood speaking with her cousins, slipping an arm around her waist with the easy familiarity of a man who now had every right to do so. "Ready to head home, Mrs. Zachary?" he asked, his voice low and intimate. The title, so new, so right, sent a pleasant shiver through Elizabeth. "Yes," she replied simply. "I'm ready." After farewells that threatened to become tearful, particularly with Judge Blackburn, the newlyweds departed in Sam's wagon, well bundled against the December chill. The stars shone brilliantly overhead as they traveled the now familiar road to Eagle Creek Ranch to their home. "Are you cold?" Sam asked, drawing her closer against his side as he guided the horses. "Not with you here," Elizabeth assured him, resting her head on his shoulder. As they crested the final hill, Eagle Creek Ranch came into view, windows glowing with welcoming light. Mrs. Jenkins and several other neighboring women had gone ahead earlier in the day to prepare the house for the newlyweds' arrival, a traditional gesture of community support that touched Elizabeth deeply. Sam halted the wagon before the house, but made no immediate move to help Elizabeth down. Instead, he turned to face her, his expression serious in the starlight. "I want you to know," he said softly, "that this is as much your home as it is mine now. Whatever changes you wish to make, whatever direction you want us to take, this is our ranch, our future. Together." Elizabeth reached up to touch his face, her heart full. "I know, Sam, and I promise you this. I will pour as much love and work into Eagle Creek as you have. We'll build something extraordinary here, not just a successful ranch, but a true home." His smile in response was worth every challenge she had faced to reach this moment. "I love you, Elizabeth Zachary." "And I love you, Samuel Zachary," she whispered before his lips claimed hers in a kiss that sealed their promises more effectively than any words could have done. Later, as they lay together in the master bedroom that Sam had so carefully prepared for her arrival, Elizabeth reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. From that terrifying moment when Penny had thrown her into the ravine to this night of profound intimacy and commitment, it seemed both an eternity and the blink of an eye. "What are you thinking?" Sam asked, propping himself on one elbow to gaze down at her, his features softened by the golden light of the bedside lamp. "I'm thinking that sometimes life's worst moments lead to its greatest blessings," she replied, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. "If I hadn't fallen that day, I'd have found you eventually," he said with quiet certainty. "Some things are meant to be, Elizabeth. We're meant to be." As she drifted toward sleep in her husband's arms, Elizabeth silently agreed. Whatever challenges lay ahead, harsh winters, difficult calving seasons, the isolation that ranch life sometimes imposed, they would face them together, building a life as solid and enduring as the land they called home. Spring came early to Kansas that year, bringing with it an abundance of wildflowers and the promise of new beginnings. Elizabeth, now settled comfortably into her role as Mrs. Zachary, had transformed Eagle Creek Ranch in subtle but significant ways. The house felt more like a home, with curtains at the windows and a vegetable garden flourishing behind the kitchen. The ranch records were meticulously organized, and thanks to Elizabeth's suggestions about breeding stock, their herd was thriving. Most importantly, as she confided to Sam one perfect April evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, their family was about to expand. "A baby," he repeated, his voice filled with wonder as he placed a gentle hand over her still flat stomach. "You're certain?" Elizabeth nodded, covering his hand with her own. "Dr. Peterson confirmed it yesterday when I was in town. He estimates the baby will arrive in late October or early November." Sam's expression transformed from shock to pure joy as he gathered her into his arms, holding her as though she were made of the finest porcelain. "Elizabeth," he murmured against her hair, "you've made me the happiest man alive." Again, the months that followed were busy ones at Eagle Creek. Sam threw himself into preparing for the baby's arrival with the same dedication he brought to ranch work, crafting a cradle and other nursery furniture by hand in the evenings after his outdoor work was done. Elizabeth, meanwhile, continued managing the household and ranch records for as long as her condition permitted, determined to contribute fully to their partnership. Judge Blackburn became a more frequent visitor, his pride in his forthcoming grandchild evident in the books and toys he brought on each visit. "My first grandchild will be the best educated in Kansas," he declared, as he presented Elizabeth with a set of illustrated children's books from St. Louis. The baby arrived on a crisp November morning after a labor that tested even Elizabeth's considerable courage. Sam remained by her side throughout, his steady presence giving her strength when her own began to flag. When their son finally made his entrance, announcing himself with a lusty cry that echoed through the ranch house, the look of awe on Sam's face as he held his child for the first time was something Elizabeth knew she would treasure forever. James Edward Zachary, they decided, naming him for both their fathers. He was a sturdy boy with a shock of dark hair and eyes that, when they opened, revealed the same vivid blue as his father's. "He's perfect," Sam whispered as the three of them huddled together in the bed, a new family unit complete. Elizabeth smiled tiredly, exhausted but happier than she had ever been. "He is," she agreed, "and so is this life we've built." As winter settled over Eagle Creek Ranch, bringing with it quiet evenings by the fire and the peaceful rhythm of life with a newborn, Elizabeth often reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in less than 2 years. From a proper judge's daughter to a rancher's wife and mother, from town life to the relative isolation of Eagle Creek, the transformation had been complete and utterly fulfilling. On a snowy evening in early January, as she nursed little James while Sam read aloud from one of her favorite novels, Elizabeth felt a contentment so deep it brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Noticing, Sam paused in his reading. "Elizabeth, is something wrong?" She shook her head, smiling through her tears. "Nothing's wrong. Everything is right." She looked down at their son, then back to her husband. "I was just thinking about that day in the ravine, how frightened I was, how much pain I was in. I couldn't have imagined then that it would lead to this. To us." Sam set the book aside and moved to sit beside her on the sofa, slipping an arm around her shoulders and gazing down at their nursing son. "Sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as accidents," he observed softly. "I thank God every day that I was there to find you." "As do I," Elizabeth agreed, leaning into his embrace. "As do I." Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing Eagle Creek Ranch in pristine white, while inside, the Zachary family forged from an unlikely rescue and built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared work, and deepening love remained warm and secure, their future stretching before them as vast and promising as the Kansas prairie itself.